In this lecture, we are going to constrain the player's movement to the 2D plane. But first, let's take care of another small issue. When I run the game, we can see that there is a small gap between the feet and the ground. So let's open the player blueprint. Switch to the viewport. Then we select the sprite component. Let's try to change the Z location from 9 down to 8. Press Alt plus P to test. Great, I think the gap is not here anymore. Let me run around a bit to make sure the feet touch the ground all the time. Alright, let's stop and save the change. Alright, go back to our job here. First, I want to show you why we need to constrain the player's movement to the 2D plane. By the way, I'm just trying to demonstrate the reason, and you don't need to follow my steps here, alright? Let's go to the perspective view, then add a sphere to the world. Let's go to the details panel to reset the location of the sphere. Now the sphere is pure white. No problem, because we are in the lit mode. If you switch to the lit mode, it's going to become completely black because we don't have any light sources here. Let me move the sphere to the right of the player start point. And I want to make it smaller. Then we can hit the play button to test. Don't mind that the sphere is black here, because again, there is no light in the lit mode. Let me try to run past the sphere. Unfortunately, we cannot do it, because the sphere is in the exact Y position as the player. So let me give it a nudge and push it backward just a little bit. Now let's see what is going to happen. Wow, we just ran off the platform. So what just happened? Let's see it again. I'm going to hit F8 to detach. Then in the 3D world, we can see the player is pushed by the y-axis by the sphere. And this is the reason why we need to constrain the player's movement to the ZY plane. Let's go to the player blueprint. Select the character movement component. Then let's go search for plane. Then we can see the planar movement section. By the way, it's also okay to just select the self and search, because we can also get everything in the components from here. Let's enable constraint to plane. Then we need to set the constraint normal. Let's go to the perspective view to find out the normal. The normal is the perpendicular axis to the 2D plane of our game. So the 2D plane is Z and X, and the normal that's perpendicular to the plane is Y. Let's go back to the player blueprint. Set the Y value of constraint normal to 1. Alright, let's compile and test our game again. This time, the player just stops here. I'm holding the forward key, but the player just doesn't move. Alright, we are done here, and let me delete the sphere. Now the player is never going to move along the y-axis, which wraps up this lecture.